You're watching Weekly Brief, and in your interest, we're talking about Lenskart, the much anticipated IPO of Lenskart. Is going to be out to be able to be subscribed by retail investors, but whether they should subscribe or not, we're not giving any advice, Karthik. But valuations are scary at the moment. 70,000 crore rupees.
Absolutely. I think, we are in no capacity to give any advice on the IPO or stock market, investments per se. And that's a disclaimer that we will open this discussion with. But yes, and there's been a lot of debate on that 70,000 crore rupee valuation, given the fact that that valuation has increased more than 30% just in the last 3 months or so. Now, there are a lot of facets that go behind this story, and I think, some of it has been captured very well in the debates that one watches on and consumes on social media, especially on X. And I think, the house seems to be a little divided, though there seems to be a majority of stock market veterans who are asking investors to exercise caution, because this does seem to be a case of overvaluation. There are also some questions being made and asked of SEBI on why SEBI is actually permitting this sort of hype, and why SEBI is not really clamping down on a few facts that Lenskart became profitable only last financial year, and even that profitability comes, I think a bulk of it comes on the back of some accounting fixes which were done in the P&L and the balance sheet. And then the last fundraise valued the company at about $6 billion or so, and now 70,000 crore rupees is a valuation of about $8 billion. But at the same time, there is tremendous grey market premium, about 27% or so, and there seems to be definitely a lot of investor interest in this particular IPO. So now, is this an IPO which is going to go down, let's say, the Paytm way, or is this an IPO which is going to go up the Zomato eternal way? Is something that we will have to wait and watch for. But as numbers stand right now, it does seem to be a case of overvaluation. And even on the upper price band of 402 rupees, people are saying that this is a lot higher than what in the last sort of share buyback that Piyush Bansal had done at 52 rupees a share. The share price at the upper band is almost 8 times that. So obviously there's a lot of money to be made by the founders. Is there going to be money to be made for retail investors, especially on account of AMCs, the DIIs, which are lining up to participate in purchasing the Lenskart stock? So directly or indirectly, are investors going to make money or lose money? Perhaps we'll get a hint of that only on 10th November when the stock lists.
All right. So 10th of November is when the stock lists. But as Karthik pointed out, a lot of questions about valuation, very high compared to what the actual value was, about $6 billion. And currently valued at 70,000 crore rupees, which is about $8 billion. Is that something that investors should be wary of right now?
So, Shweta, there are 2 aspects to this whole IPO thing. And what I find very disturbing as a business editor, as someone who's been around and looked at IPOs and looked at promoters, is the fact that just 4 months ago, Piyush Bansal gets a bunch of his investors, which are largely private equity and family offices, to sell them, to buy share from them at a valuation of only 52 rupees per piece, which works out to 8,500 crore.
Yeah.
Now, if you are a private equity investor or you're a family office, if I knew that just 4 months down the road, there's going to be an IPO coming that's going to value the company at 8 times of that price, would I sell? So first question, did Piyush Bansal actually tell these investors that there's an IPO that's coming down the road? Was there full disclosure? I don't know, but I would be very surprised, and I would ask, know from private equity investors, if they knew there's an IPO coming at a higher price, at an 8x the price which they have been offered, why would they offer any kind of shares to Piyush Bansal? Especially given that it would not be fair to their LPs, the people who have put money in these funds, and these general partners who run these funds are fiduciary responsibility. That is number one. Now, second is, if Piyush Bansal has indeed hidden this fact from the private equity investors and probably told them that I'm not considering an IPO, but suddenly sprung this on them, then there is a breach of trust. He, as the promoter, as a director of the company, Piyush Bansal has a fiduciary responsibility to all shareholders, including the private equity investors who are there. So this is a clear breach in this case, it would be a clear breach of fiduciary responsibility on Piyush Bansal's part.
Right.
And there are provisions in Companies Act. There's also provisions in Indian Penal Code for such breach of fiduciary responsibility.
Can I just throw a little bit of a twist to this narrative, which I'm also, by the way, I'm on your side and I agree that it is overvalued. But I was running through some numbers and I was just looking at the number of stores that Titan I Plus has versus the number of stores that Lenskart operates. And remember, Titan has been around much longer. Titan Eyewear has been around at least, it had a head start of at least a decade, if not more, right?
So about two decades.
Right. So a head start over Lenskart of at least a decade, right? And Titan I Plus runs a total of only 300 stores as compared to more than 2,800 stores that Lenskart runs, out of which about 2,200 stores are run in India alone. By the way, it's also now a global company in that sense because it also has retail in Singapore, in Dubai, in a few other countries, a few other cities. So the point is that there is a model that eyewear as a category, there are more number of people, I was reading again somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, some 65 million additional people likely to wear specs until 2030. So that's a big market opportunity, number one. Number two, Lenskart has shown that it can actually scale up a business which was a need-based business to a lifestyle business, where if you go to a Lenskart outlet, you are potentially not buying just one frame, right? Because the average price of a frame in Lenskart with the lenses is about 1,500 rupees. The average ticket size of every customer who goes to a Lenskart store is about 2,300 rupees. So I think it's fair at some level to assume that people on an average, 2 out of every 3 people who are visiting a Lenskart store are buying 2 pairs of specs and not one.
Also because
And perhaps
because they have the 1+1 offer.
They have the 1+1 offer.
Yes,
Sure,
yeah,
you can't
yeah.
blame them for that, right? So you're buying perhaps your spectacles as a lifestyle gear and not just a need. And the fact that you've been able to scale up your business to a point that you're running 2,800 stores, you have turned profitable, I think 128 crore rupees of pure profits, and then some accounting fix which took the overall profitability
Financial
to about
charges,
260 odd crore rupees. So the fact is that Lenskart has shown investors that this could be a category like Nykaa, which also has high PE, but cosmetics is not just use-based, it's also want-based, right? We've seen that case
Paytm.
even Paytm also when it listed, right? Or Eternal, Zomato, right? Zomato also turned profitable and Blinkit is yet to turn profitable. But we are seeing Eternal, the parent company, the holding company, is now part of the Sensex 30. It is among the 30 most valuable companies on the basis of what people would earlier call a tech
these
product.
are exactly technology companies. Now you can say that
But-
Lenskart also sells online, but that doesn't make you a tech company per se, right?
But
Yeah.
does it make Zomato or Eternal a tech company? Because you're running warehouses, you're employing gig workers, you're providing them, the entire logistics chain. So you've also gone beyond tech. You're also keeping.
Yeah, but
buying
it's
and
not like
keeping
an
stuff in
AI
your,
company that, it's
exactly.
like
It's not pure tech.
give
It's not pure
yeah,
tech.
exactly.
I mean, I know we are pretty much out of time, but, just to sort of play devil's advocate on behalf of Piyush Bansal, I'm not paid to do it, but just sort of, questioning the theory here. Obviously, the negotiation would have taken place, right? Whether or not, Lenskart's IPO plans have been making news for a while now, well before, the 4-month period that we are discussing right now.
So I have absolutely no issue if there was disclosure made. Absolutely no problem.
Sure.
If they sold it willingly, knowing that there's an IPO coming which is going to value it at 70,000 crore, no problem.
Right.
But if it hasn't happened,
the question
then there are some
is,
serious
if
ethical
investors
questions
have exited,
which this raises.
If investors have exited,
They're not exited. They only like partly sold. They're still there.
Partly sold, exited some portion of
Yeah.
their holding. If they've exited that holding, they've obviously exited it at what they define as a fair valuation.
Definitely.
Right. So I'm sure maybe there was a term sheet which said that before IPO, I'm going to buy it at 52 rupees
So
a
we
share,
don't know.
Right? We
So
don't
that
know.
needs to be
We don't know.
made very
Exactly.
clear.
So
Exactly.
Piyush Bansal, I think we can end it on Piyush Bansal there. Has to answer a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
Or perhaps we'll wait for some of the investors to come out in public if at all they were not made aware or if they were blindsided by Piyush Bansal. But that is, of course, what is making news in the newsroom this week.